Okay, I think, yes, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us on a gorgeous day. We know you had some other options. I'm Karen Harper, president of the Nashville Young Circle, and we are very excited to welcome back one of our former board members, Laura Huff Hileman, and she is presenting on one of our favorite topics. I'm sure it's her favorite topic. She's one of our favorite presenters. So we're very excited to see her today. And she is a Jungian-oriented dreamworker and spiritual director. She trained at the Hayden Institute and now facilitates dream groups and individual sessions and has done so since 2010. So she's very experienced and very good, if I may say so myself. So she now lives and works in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and we welcome her today. In the meantime, if you would keep yourselves muted, there will be a chance to ask questions, and there'll be a couple of breakout rooms, or at least one breakout room. And so without further ado, here is Laura.
Hi, thank you all. And honestly, I'll echo Karen because it's a gorgeous day out there and you chose to be here. And I appreciate that you're interested in dreams and interested in the opportunity to share your own and hear some things about what, out of my tiny little pinhole, right? Of all the dreams and dreamers I've, been listening to lately, there are some things. So thanks to the board, because I love the idea, that you have these very, gorgeous programs. And then every now and then we just need to talk a little bit amongst ourselves. So that's what we're doing today. And so I guess I wanted to give you just a little outline. I'll give you a little bit of background. So I listen to people's dreams. That's what I do. Somehow I'm getting away with that. That's my living now. And, I certainly am indebted to the COVID Zoom practice because now you can listen to dreams and share dreams always from your safe little basement. And so, which is where I am now. And so, I'm listening to people in groups and individuals, and then there's I teach at Hayden Institute, and so I hear those dreams too. And I feel like I listen to a lot of dreams, but it's just the tiniest little sliver when you think of every single human on this planet is dreaming about 5 times a night, right? Most of those we never remember. Most of those are remembered only in fragments. And then the tiniest bit of those ever actually get shared. And so I feel like this is kind of this little shining shard of brilliance that we get to step into here today. So thank you for doing that. I was going to here's my outline. I have really good intentions for having an organized situation here. Things could go differently. So I just wanted to talk about personal and collective dreaming for a minute and just introduce just the concepts of those two things. I want to spend a while, and then maybe about half an hour, telling you about a couple of themes that I am hearing lately. All right. And these are really lately, like within the last, couple of months. I think there's one in there that dates back to last fall. And then what we're going to do is go into breakout rooms with about 3 in each room. And I have a little, some guidelines. We'll talk about that later. And I really want you to take the opportunity to get down in there and spend about half an hour if you want to talk about your dream or about one of the dreams that I share, and really get down there and play with it and listen to each other. And then we'll come back together and just sort of share, well, what when we put all that together, what are some impressions that we might have? What are some questions we have going forward? What are some things that arise as we consider how to be dream workers and why it's important? And then after conclusion, we'll do a little meditation exercise and just practice receiving dreams. I mean, I think that's such an important part of what we do here. It's just the reception part. So to start off, these are a few trends. So I hope this puts you at ease. So many people, including myself, have been saying lately that they're having a really hard time remembering their dreams, that they're remembering only these really vague little bits, that they're not something you can quite hang on to, that they're remembering snippets and fragments. and that it's really frustrating. And the dreams that they do feel like are whole are really tiny. Now, that's not everybody by any means, but I keep hearing that over and over. And so I'm just offering that as something to notice. And my own take on that is I appreciate those little fragments. They're powerful, they're potent. They may be sort of detached, but Jeremy Taylor is always talking about the value of a fragment. And I think of it as the haiku version of some epic thing. It's like this little tentacle that washes up on the seashore that tells us that, oh, there is a sea monster and we don't see the whole thing now. Or it's like a little fragment of an eggshell that says a bird is loose in the world now. And it's like, and this is something that indicates a little bit about it. So I really do value the fragments. And Jeremy Taylor, he says, it's what we remember is what's ripe for knowing. If you can dream it, you can deal with it if they're disturbing. So dreams are here for our individuation. It's that whole project. If you think of this idea that you're born with an acorn of yourself is like this acorn, and it has an oak tree in it. And the project throughout your life is to foster the growth of that oak and let it become what it is, just becoming who you are. That is the project that dreams are helping us with. And so the dreams are here for you. The dreams are largely about us. But then there's this other dimension, right? Which is everybody's dream. If you've been in a dream circle, I don't know if anybody has shared dreams, has really sat down and shared dreams with each other. You'll have an opportunity soon. Any one person's dream carries this resonance, this significance somehow for others. I have never, and I did actually start this dreamwork, this dream circle stuff. I think it was 1999 when I started dream school. No time ever has there been a dream that didn't find resonance in other people in the circle. I mean, they are soul stories for all of us. And so something is always there for us to pick up on. Well, everything's connected. And I just want to read you this quote from The Wisdom of Your Dreams by Jeremy Taylor. And it's like, why? What are they doing? What about this collective level? And you know that in Jung's sort of vision of the psyche, which I really love. I mean, it's kind of, I get that. It feels right. That there's the ego, the part of us that really is the me we mean when we talk about ourselves in the waking world, that conscious, aware me. Then there's the personal unconscious, all those things that we do not know about ourselves. Maybe we forgot them or repressed them. Maybe we just haven't learned them yet. All right. A lot of great stuff in that level, like complexes and shadows. And then down in the muddy bottom of the, it's the connecting tissue of the whole reality of human nature. That's the collective unconscious. He pictured this famously as, the ego is the tip of the iceberg. The personal unconscious is the iceberg itself. And the collective unconscious is the entire ocean that covers all the whole planetary ocean. Wow. Okay. That's a lot of bigness. And so with that model in mind, here's a little bit of wisdom from Jeremy Taylor. He says, our dreams generate creativity and wholeness on collective levels too. It's not only for ourselves. They mirror society as a whole, as well as our relationship to it. Furthermore, he says, our dreams and our conscious dream work foster and reflect the evolution of human consciousness. Like, we are helping evolve the species. Okay, I just love to remember that every now and then. Every little bit of dream work you do, every little bit of soul work you do is fostering the evolution of the human species. That's kind of great to just hold on to that a minute. All right. And right now in the collective, we have a lot going on. We've got, right at the top of if you pay attention to the news at all, there's the war in Ukraine and wars elsewhere. And there's economic anxiety and refugees. And through and beneath and above and below everything is the climate crisis. And as I pay attention, I believe that people's dreams are reflecting these issues, that we are dreaming about these collective issues. And we're also engaged, we're finding ways in our dreams to engage with creativity and courage and compassion. That the dreams give us that too. So I don't know, some of you may have been here a couple of years ago when we talked about COVID dreams. It was sort of our last little chatty check-in with what's going on in the dream world. And one of the things that we picked up on there, I mean, there were lots and lots of people sending in their COVID dreams. They were clearly COVID dreams, okay? And one of the little comments that I thought was so interesting is, yes, it's a COVID dream, but it's also saying something profound about the dreamer. So in that sort of conversation, we were looking at things that had been sent in across, the various sort of receiving, websites and stuff as the COVID dream. But then there's all this fascinating stuff about the personal that could come out too. And in this is sort of the flip that I want to propose, is that what I'm going to show you here are these personal dreams that then have this collective level. And that's kind of the point of some dreams I want to share. It's always both personal and collective and more. Let me just share this little rhyme that I learned at Hayden Institute. Okay. It's never a question of either or. It's always the mystery of both and more. So it's the both and more that dreams are always tapping into and always inviting us to grow into. All right. So I'm going to share a couple of main themes. The first one has sort of an A and B part. And then I'm just putting them out there for our entertainment. I mean, I think dreams are, I know some people say, oh no, they're so-and-so. They always tell me their dreams, but I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to hear your dream, So maybe I hope this is not like dreadful and boring, but I just want to sort of prime the pump a little bit. Also, I have noticed, usually there are people, if they have these funny dreams or these really oddball dreams or super weird, like really, really amusing dreams, like we get tickled, about them, or you wake up laughing or singing. I'm not hearing those. I hope you are having some moments of levity in your own dream life. And usually the dream giver, there's lots of humor. I get a lot of, they're puns. There's always puns. But I'm not really hearing that sense of levity that feels like it's so often part of. So I don't know. You talk about that in your groups, okay? So this first category, I'm calling part 1A is cataclysm and despair. Part 1B is cataclysm, despair, and response. Okay, so I'm just going to share some dreams here. And think about your own dreams. It is normal to have like upsetting moments and weird people that scare you, or death, or, it's all about transformation and that growing edge of your awareness, of your consciousness. It doesn't feel comfortable because the ego doesn't want to change. And that's always the project, which is one reason why we forget our dreams. It's like, no, I don't want things to change, right? In the dream, it's like, change, okay? And if we resist it long enough, it becomes sort of nightmarish and pushes us to the point where we have to deal with it. All right, they're our best friends, some of those nightmares, okay? Because they're our best teachers and our best guides. So there's a certain level of that's normal. And I just am picking up maybe on a little bit of a different tenor. This disorder seems really beyond the realm of the dreamer's control. There's something about it's more. That's something I hear. So here's an obvious one. And this was, as you can probably tell, right at the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine. So this dreamer is dreaming a bomb has gone off and destroyed part of the city. Now the air is full of hovering missiles, hundreds of them. And we know that at any second we could all be blown away. So that inability to do anything about that hopelessness and despair and just inevitability of personal and collective demise, there's one. Okay, tsunamis, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, those kinds of things that really completely upset your whole setting, your whole world. Those are those are happening out there. Here's just one with a tsunami. It's gathering far out at sea, and I see it coming at us. And I'm noticing that this dreamer said, it's coming at us, not it's coming at me. So I just find that usness. There's a lot of times there's an us to this quality in these dreams. Okay, here's one. Again, there's more than just the dreamer. We are submerged in the sea at night, caged. So there's this cage under the water, and they are in it, and a sea creature, a giant sea creature, a vicious giant sea creature in the waters will surely destroy us. So in those dreams, there's this expected order that is upset. The sense of, oh, we're a peaceful city, or, oh, there's not a tsunami, or, oh, we're above that. We should be above the water in a boat and safer. Those expected orders are upset. And that's kind of an archetypal situation of this disorder, loss, and chaos. And you know, it doesn't take much to hear in all that. Yeah, here's a climate situation. Here's a war situation. Here's an overwhelmed situation, that kind of thing. And so what I'd like to do is then go, here's another one, and this one is titled Death River. And in this one, you start to see a little bit of something else. And I'm going to read this. This dreamer's quite a storyteller. The dreamer reports, I'm standing at the place where a lake drains into a river. So that's kind of backwards to start with. Usually rivers turn into lakes, right? Enormous, like really huge fish are dying. Alligators are dying. I wonder at their pain. I wonder what draws them here. I feel a duty to watch. It feels like somehow I'm helping them with their transition. And then the current picks them up and moves them into the river. It takes them over breakwaters and quickens as it rushes downhill through rocks and rapids that froth the water like egg beaters. I see the animals being pulverized until the whole river is a slurry of death. Like, that is almost apocalyptic. I mean, that's hard to hear. Then the dream shifts to a banquet hall where disabled adults are enjoying a presentation, where the presenter, a woman with animalistic features, speaks to them with humor and creates good rapport. They're clapping and laughing, but the dreamer's uncomfortable and wants to leave. So you see that shift there from the catastrophic death and destruction to, well, there's some people here, and those animals have kind of come back to life in the face of the speaker. And in the bigger picture, the greater archetypal picture, there's always something more than just the death and destruction that wakes up the dreamer. There's always more, and that's what I'm starting to see in some other dreams that I'm going to show you here in a minute. These are the ones where I think there's a response in some way. And my note to myself was the dream theme of some sort of response, some sort of hope suggests a different feeling. There's a response of wholeheartedness, a mindful, creative response that embraces both suffering and hope in a way that sobers us and also surprises us with a lift of the heart and offers, as one dream puts it, a somber joy. So, you think back to the oldest patterns that we have, the oldest archetypal story patterns we have, whether we call it birth, death, rebirth, the hero's journey, disorder, right? Order, disorder, reorder. That general pattern is in fairy tales and legends, spiritual and religious sacred texts, fairy tales. I mean, it's just sort of always. So here are some in the dreams. So this is the one that has that kind of sense of response. So let's see, I've got a couple here. Two. So here's one about a flood. And I'm hoping I've got this pretty much right if you were here. Thank you, dreamer. Everywhere the waters are rising, there are rescue workers trying to help, but there's no place to go. I am with poor people. It seems to be like a kind of a desolate, poverty-stricken area or even country, they will not be helped by anyone else. They're left here to deal with the crisis, and they may or may not survive. I follow one of the rescuers into a simple building, and there I see a gathering of people sharing a simple meal. Their response, it seems, is to gather and share and be together as their world may or may not end. So just like Shakespearean tragedies in with, that kind of gathering around the corpse, and the comedy ends with the gathering around the feast. We're starting to see a feast. I mean, there's a banquet and a banquet hall and a speaker in the first one. Here comes a feast. Here's another feast. And I love this dream. This dreamer probably needs her own podcast. So y'all are going to love this dream. Battle and Feast is the name of this one. So it begins with a battle raging in the sea. It's a classic apocalyptic scenario of good versus evil. Archetypal characters from ancient and modern myth are fighting fiercely. Darth Vader with his faceless stormtroopers battle Harry Potter and the heroes of Gryffindor. Luke Skywalker, Anakin, and Dumbledore clash with Voldemort, Darth Maul, and the Death Eaters. Winged centaurs join the fray, while Doctor Who gets injured and is taken prisoner. Suddenly, one of the white-clad stormtroopers separates from the battle and rips off his helmet. He is Finn, who joins the resistance and carries the limp Doctor Who to safety. There in a green meadow, the good guys laugh and celebrate what feels like a great victory. Maybe they hope that this has somehow turned the tide of battle. But suddenly, a woman appears, a crone bearing a staff, her face and body draped in a cloak like sparkling silver mist. And she intones in a commanding voice, "How dare you interrupt Babette's feast?" She's pretty intense, okay? Instantly the scene shifts, and now there's a picnic outdoors with beautiful food. One of the women says, "We let this happen. We let it end. I thought it would always continue, but now it's only once a day." The people eat, but there's a profound, pervasive feeling of sorrow and at the same time celebration. This feeling lingers into waking. And it's so moving to me. The feeling in the group when she shared this dream was like keeping the feast with joy and sorrow. Like that felt like, yes, that is the response. It felt so true. It really moved us all. And I want to just point out that feast or gathering, somber joy, which we've seen in several of these, may be a life-saving gesture from the dream giver. This indication that crisis itself opens us up to some sort of relatedness and generosity, compassion, a vision of unity that fosters our will, maybe even a culture that could, in fact, save us from the death of the soul, even if we perish in body. These are serious dreams, and they move us all. So this dream and others like it, and I'm just pulling a few that kind of picture something I see. So for every dream that you hear, there's others like it. Pictures a redeeming attitude that transcends or outlives that life or death crisis at hand. I just sort of hover with that a minute and just go, wow, I wonder if there's anything like that in your dreams. You're going to have a nice long time to talk in a small group. And so just kind of mentally review, like, does that feel like a dream I've had? Does that feel like a story that's moved me or a movie that caught my attention? Maybe there's music. This is a really beautiful, this comes across in music, I think, so well. That joy and sorrow together, and it brings healing tears sometimes. That second category that I wanted to give you, I don't know what to call this. I just decided to call it soul helpers. But it's about helpers, okay? And so all this kind of stuff, these are the most numerous ones I've been hearing, and they suggest the lost order, or maybe they give you a crisis, but something's different, something's out of joint, and you can tell what it was that was better before, all right? And then they picture the disorder, and then they show something in the dream creating some sort of reorder or a birth of a new perspective. And usually there's a helper, or some kind of a presence that comes in. And I just want to go, this is what the dreams do for us. They can provide the next step. Sometimes we wake up and we just need to feel the feelings, and then be in it and let them work on us a while. Sometimes the dreams are going to give us this next thing. So listen in these dreams for that creative, surprising helper who may even in some cases be the self, right? That organizing principle of the soul, at the center of everything for each one of us. Okay. So jail dreams. How many of us have had jail dreams? All right. And in these jail dreams, they're all kind of similar. And I've had these too, in which there's a group of us. I am one of many, but you're in jail with other people. And everybody's busy feeling like they're imprisoned. And that seems to be the tenor of the whole dream. When somebody ambles in, or ambles out, and everybody looks around and goes, wait, there are not any guards. There are not any bars. There are not any locks. We can go. And it's this wonderful dream that, and it doesn't occur to the dreamer that they can go. There's always somebody else. My favorite one involves you've got to ride out on the back of a dwarf. That's how you exit. So, I love dwarfs. They're the ones who mine. They're down in the mines, in the unconscious and digging up the gold. And so riding, pay attention. Who's your dwarf? Keep an eye out for the dwarf who gets you out of jail, right? It's something kind of small and insignificant and maybe kind of ugly, and it's an unexpected helper. Here's one kind of cosmic. The dreamer just calls this planet. So it starts off, the dreamer is in her hometown, and I have permission for all these dreams. Of course, I would never tell a dream without permission. So she also gave me permission to say she's in her hometown, which the name of it significantly is Eden. All right. So she's standing in Eden with the rest of the town, and there's this thing that looks like a planet hurtling toward them. There's going to be this cataclysmic impact. It's going to be devastation. And it's like this black sphere. And then there's radiant light just coming out all around it. Like it's part of it. It shines, but the light's part of it. All right. And it's coming straight at the dreamer's town, and people are busy trying to leave. And then the trajectory starts to veer off, and the dreamer's watching this. And it touches down and gently, so the perspective shifts, touches down kind of where Africa and the Middle East come together, like the old Eden, and then it sort of takes a little bounce in the Atlantic Ocean. And then it comes to where she's standing with these other people. She says, think of it like the way an eclipse looks. It looks like that, except anyway, so that's what. And as it comes closer and closer, she realizes she can communicate with it. And it lets her know that all is well. She is not in danger. It's a friend. So she watches in awe as it touches down right near her. It's huge, like 1/10 of the size of the earth. And she is not overpowered. And it's as though this radiant, black, sort of shining orb thing has the personal and collective focus of the self. It has the feeling of this wholeness, dark and light, round and spiky, has settled right there and lives with her in Eden. I love that. Okay. So here's one. Maybe you've had one like this. This one's called The Well. And the dreamer is walking along. There's a priest over here with a book, wearing a robe, kind of one of those no kind of voices, in the dream. And so the dreamer passes by the priest and then sees this weird structure. It looks like maybe it's a well covered up with wooden kind of, it's boarded up. So it pulls off and thinks, I wonder how deep this is. And takes a piece of wood and tosses down there and waits for the splash, waits for the thump if the well is dry. It never comes. It's endless. But this voice comes up out of the well, this low moan that's very loud and resonant and creepy, but also wonderful and fascinating and magnetic and unforgettable. And the dreamer wakes up like, I have no idea what that is, but it's important and I'm not ever gonna forget this, right? So something got discovered down in that well and remains as a present. Okay, y'all good for a couple more? Are y'all getting tired? I don't want to bore you, but there's one. This is so perfect about shadow. You know, we talk about shadow. There's parts of ourselves that we feel they show up in dreams as scary people or scary things or disgusting or some way reprehensible, and just no. But this dream completely perfectly illustrates the whole business of shadow work. All right. So this dream, the dreamer says, she starts off with this, she's in a shamanic circle. There's a fire, a shaman, and she's sitting with these people, but then there's this shadowy presence. It's terrifying. It's absolutely huge. And it's for her. It's got her in mind. Okay. And the shaman says, well, you must embrace it. There's this real close face-to-face with the shaman who's like, you must embrace it. Well, this is terrifying. This is the most scary thing possible. And her heart is pounding and, you know, she's sweating and she goes towards it. There's sort of this threshold and it's bigger and bigger every step she takes. But she reaches out and embraces it. And instantly it explodes in this brilliant light and she has the hardest time trying to describe what it is. So I love that. I love those kind of, I can't quite say it moments in a dream because they're so true. She's like, it's like warm, even fluffy, like a blanket, but also like a good luck dragon or a lion or a dog. And it's the greatest, the peace and the connectedness and the warmth is just overwhelming. Okay. So whatever that is, she's keeping it with her. And that model of embracing the shadow, it's just priceless. There it is. It never happens like that. I don't think it's clean. I've never heard a dream where it was just like that clear, but that's the concept of shadow work right there. So that connection, that guardian, she named the dream guardian because now that energy is a guardian. Here's one. I like these weird ones, these ones where you just go, what? So in this dream called Bird Baby, the dreamer's standing outside with her husband and this crow is flying over. But wait, it's dead. It's burned. It drops to the ground, lands at her feet, this burned, blackened, dead crow. Except wait, there's a baby crow with it. And as she watches, the baby crow begins to turn into a human baby. And she's like, that's our baby. We're going to be wonderful parents. And as the feathers start kind of just fading and the child becomes more and more human, the perfect name comes into her mind. And she can't remember it. Days later, she writes, it might have been Tristan. And I thought, well, of course it's Tristan. Tristan means sadness. There's that theme again, that sadness and joy intermingled as being like, this is how we're human on this earth. And we're giving out of that sense of the gift of the joy and the sadness. So I love those helpers. It's never kind of just perfect. There's a challenge implied, even living with that guardian that's so kind of hard to language. And that there's always a sense of and there can be this sense of sorrow is the accompaniment to our work. I think that is just something I keep seeing over and over. I'll give you two more pictures, and this is like the self, that the way the self shows up sometimes in a dream. The idea is it's that personal, original wholeness, original blessing. It's powerful. It's connected to the deep unconscious, but it is the divine within is one way of talking about it. Every culture has languages for this ineluctable, inner radiant perfection. And we see it show up in dreams from time to time when we need it. So here are two really different versions of it. One, this was a dream. The dreamer had lots and lots of wild and disturbing and challenging dreams. And in this one, she finds herself seated by a lake. She's just kind of breathing. And there's a beautiful tree beside her. And then one by one, 5 white birds, all different, come and settle in the branches. She just sits and just stays in the wholeness and peace of that moment with the water and the tree and the 5 white birds. So that feels like, those birds feel like parts of herself that just settle and stay with her. And I'll end with a dream that maybe you have a figure like this somewhere along the line. The dreamer reports, I'm in a car with a dad, not the dreamer's dad, but a generic dad and his 4-year-old son. So the dad and the son. The father lets the son practice driving. He says he wants the boy to learn how to trust himself. And so the dreamer is thinking, 4-year-olds can't drive. This is a crazy idea. But the father is like, no, he needs to learn how to trust himself. So then the dreamer is sitting in the driver's seat, and the 4-year-old is sitting in his lap. And the 4-year-old is operating the steering wheel. They're in a parking lot. I love parking lots. They're these liminal spaces, kind of between, like not really in, not really out, beside, kind of the preparatory place, the part where you're leaving and coming. So of course we're in the parking lot driving, and the little boy is steering and the dreamer is operating the gas and the brakes. And he's doing a really good job. The dreamer is just astonished at what a great driver this little boy is. And then they come to a stop, and the dreamer says, thank you, because it's been a really great experience. And the little boy says, no problem. And the dreamer is so touched by his sweetness and his innocence and his radiance and just the personality of this little boy. Later in the dream, so other things happen. The dreamer says, I'm aware of how precious it is to be with him. And I'm weeping, both joy and sadness. I'm not making this up. This just keeps coming up. Okay. And then the little boy vanishes. I look at the bottom of my shoe thinking maybe he shrunk. Maybe I stepped on him. But he's vanished. And just anytime you hear about the bottom of the shoe or the bottom of the foot, what is that part called? Right. It's the soul. And so like somehow did I absorb that through my soul, or somehow did I hurt it? Could it, there's just this anxiety, but also this preciousness. And then the dreamer, so this is the part I want to go into. So this dreamer, all of these dreamers work on their dreams. They take these dreams and they live with them and they work with them and they dialogue with them. And they do this particular dreamer with the 4-year-old said, I'm just gonna really stay with that 4-year-old. And so he's really cultivating his relationship with his 4-year-old self, which is also, I think he's understanding his inner self, his self. So his capital S self, that radical, radiant isness, that marks him, and letting the 4-year-old steer. And so actively, daily in life, letting the 4-year-old make some decisions where the ego can kind of go how fast, how slow, and moderate the speed of this development. I think it's a beautiful piece of dream work. And, so I'll stop there. I mean, those are just some things I see going on. All right. Some of those themes. And maybe they are showing us something about the evolution of human consciousness. And remembering that, every time we work on our dreams, we're helping the whole move towards individuation, the whole species. When we do our work with each other, it happens so much more richly. We're uniquely blind, to some of our own. We have these blind spots. And so even though the dream's for us, we don't catch it. And so we need people in groups. We need to have a dream partner. We need to have a dream worker. We need to have somebody we share these with. I firmly believe they're there to be shared, but that it's good to do that with a few guidelines. But I want to invite you now, because listening to the world and all of this, there's a little bit of good news, but there's an awful lot that makes us anxious. When I listen to dreams, you can hear a lot of anxiety producing things, but they make me hopeful. So I want to invite y'all to, in just a minute, we're going to break into groups of 3, more or less. And I'm going to give you 30 minutes. I hope that feels okay. But with inside the group, I'm going to invite you to just talk about what you've been dreaming lately. Now, you can tell one dream. You can just sort of talk about a range of things. There are some guidelines, and let's see, Natalie, can we pop that screen share thing? Because there's some things about sharing dreams. They're powerful, they're personal, they're kind of sacred, and we don't want to, hijack each other's dreams. And there's some just ways to do this. So I had a little guideline thing. Is that something you've got? Anyway, it's coming. That's great.
Sorry, I popped it in the chat
Okay.
for one, and then I'm going to share the screen in 1 second.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you're going to see these after you get to your group. We're not sure we've got that capability. So just, you might want to jot down a couple of these things just in case you never see them again. But the first thing is, I'll go ahead and start talking. If you choose to share a dream, the dream is yours. The dreams belong to the dreamer. And if you don't want to share a dream, you do not have to share a dream. Okay. So that's it. You could also share something like a part of a movie that really grabs you, something that has really moved you. You could share you could go back to one of the dreams I just put out there if you want to talk about that one. And we're going to go with this idea of, so anytime you start a dream circle or a dream share, you need to decide, basically I go, everything's confidential unless the dreamer says it's okay to share. And in which case they're anonymous. We don't say, so-and-so over here and then name them. Because once you put a dream out there, you start realizing as you're talking that maybe it's saying more than you really understood. And so I just want to honor that it's a vulnerable process. It's also a really rich process. So you choose. Also, before you remark on anybody's dream, you need to preface any remark with "in my dream." And this is so important because what it means is it's shorthand for I cannot possibly know what your dream means. It means even if I think I know what your dream means, there are layers and layers and layers known only to you. I can only respond out of my experience of your dream. All right. And that is a big deal. And it's a necessary boundary, and it's in all the, sort of dream ethics statements. So in my dream is how we start any remarks about someone else's dream. Also, give yourself a minute for silence. You want to imagine the dream. You want to get down in it maybe. So give yourselves a little silence. Don't rush the conversation. And here's some things you might want to watch for. And I'm not monitoring your conversations, okay? But say somebody shares a dream. You might want to know, well, what are the feelings that were so strong for the dreamer? And then talk about feelings that were strong for you as you heard the dream. Okay, those are those big first takes. There are a lot of themes that could show up, and I did add that order, disorder, reorder, and helper stuff. Okay, that may be there. It may not be. It's not a touchstone. I'm just that's what I'm hearing some lately. And then Gail Delaney has this great little dream interview thing. Shorthand SPOFA: setting, people and animals, objects, feelings, and actions. Yeah, you already talked about feelings, but these are the micro feelings that are just sort of sprinkled everywhere in there. So settings, people and animals, objects, feelings, actions. There may be more. Here's the reason that's so important. One thing we go with as a way of working with the dream is everything in the dream is a part of the dreamer. So if I'm looking at a peaceful lake, there's a peaceful lake part of me that I'm connecting to. If I'm talking face to face right up close to the shaman, there's an inner shaman, and I might really need to be told, did you? Yes, there's a shaman part of me that I need to pay attention to. This shaman part of me is very wise, is right, is challenging, makes me feel like I'm walking into my death, but actually is transformative. All right. So just asking, does the dream offer a perspective on the collective, or is it mostly a personal dream? And then be thinking about what would you like as you sort of talk about what's going on in your group. Is there anything you want to bring to the group? We're going to have some time for the group to, kind of process what rises in the groups. I'm happy to do some questions right now, though, because there may be either questions about this kind of loose invitation to get together and talk about dreams. You can also, if 30 minutes is too long, you can just get back and rejoin the greater group. But any questions in general about what's come up?
I've got a question about the number 2 in my dream. I hope my dog doesn't start barking again in a minute. Does in my dream represent not in a dream that I had, but in my perception of your dream?
Exactly. Because when you hear it, you instantly form a perception. All right. And that's what you're speaking out of. And so it's an acknowledgement that, that you are projecting, that it's not the truth for the dreamer, that it's the truth for you. Does that help? You said that well. Yeah. I think it feels so different when anybody tells you something, if you've had a dream and you've offered it and somebody tells you what it means, or without honoring that you actually are the dreamer, it really feels bad, and it can cause some damage. So I'm trusting y'all to, just practice that, and you get the hang of it really fast. Any questions about any of those dreams, or I don't know, anything that comes up for you?
Adele had her hand up a minute ago.
Okay. Yeah, I see 4 people on my little screen, so
okay.
Maybe Natalie or somebody can help call, because I only. Well, wait a minute. Maybe I can see. No, I only see 4 people. So go ahead.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
I wanted to just make a comment. I've noticed we do have a good sized group, and a lot of people have their video muted, which is not fine. When we're in the small groups, though, it's really nice if you feel comfortable to unmute your video so you can see each other.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Thank you, Adele. That would be nice. If that's not something you want to do, I mean, in my thought, that's like the star of the show, is everybody gets to talk a little bit finally after all this COVID isolation. I mean, that's when we come back with talk about what came up and a little bit of conclusion, and then an embodiment exercise. But so that's what's going on in the rest of the thing. Okay. You know what? If you comment, start talking, because I can't see to call people. Yeah, go.
I had a comment. We have your guidelines still on the screen here, but earlier in your discussion, you mentioned how oftentimes dreams have puns in them. And it struck me that there's an article I wanted to bring to everybody's attention today in the New York Times by Timothy Snyder, who's the writer who wrote an important book called On Tyranny. And the title of his article is "The War in Ukraine Has Unleashed a New Word." And it's a very long article, and I've not read it all, but he talks about how it's a very communal experience of the people in Ukraine. He points out that they speak Russian and Ukraine, and they weave in and out of those 2 languages seamlessly, even in the midst of a word. So there's a sense of that. I'm bringing it up because, Laura, it seems to me it really captures a larger community, and the community that's under such distress. The word is Russism, not fascism, but Russism. And it's even written in a different language. The letters are not like our letters, Cyrillic and so forth. So I just was caught by the significance of your bringing up that in the commonality of dreams, we often have puns. It strikes me this is a communication from that group that's in such dire straits. of how they're manipulating through this space.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And just that makes me just think about how, dreams will show you a puzzle sometimes, and there's no way you can read that writing. There's no way you can understand that language, except in the dream you do, but you can't recall it later, or there's a joke. It's the funniest thing you ever heard in your life. And when you wake up, if you remember it at all, it's just sort of stupid, and it's not even a joke. Yeah, there are all that kind of like other levels going on, and the way that the weird things are kind of those pieces you hang on to sometimes. We'll be doing in that little exercise later. We'll be moving to the image that really grabs you, and we'll sit with that a little bit. But yeah, anybody else? Okay. Well, if you feel like you kind of know what you're doing next, Natalie, our technical wizard.
So I'm creating the breakout rooms, and everyone probably knows this, but you have to accept the invitation to join the room. So you'll see a little pop-up box, and then you can join by clicking on it. If you don't join, you'll just stay in the main room here. So, okay.
How do you get back to the main room? Do you know, Natalie?
Yeah, I think that I don't remember if there's once you're in the break room, I think you can leave it and come back. But
you can always hit leave. Yeah.
I haven't done it enough to know. So
and if you hit leave, if your group is done and you hit leave and suddenly you're out of the whole thing, just rejoin, just hit the, just rejoin the Zoom and we'll let you in.
Yeah.
Then you'll get a little timer when it's like 3 minutes or something until the Zoom's over. So you have some guidance. And okay.
Ready?
Thank you. I hope some stuff came up that was interesting, that it just felt like, well, that was a good thing to do, is just talk to each other about dreams. There's no wrong way to do this as long as you do the in my dream thing. So, my question is just to kind of open it up and say, what arose that feels like it's okay to share in the larger group that came up in your conversations about what you're dreaming now? Statements, questions, observations, anything? And I guess we just raise hands because now I can see everybody. Did it feel like dreams were just like, what is that? Was there any sense like, okay, that dream actually offered me something, or was it total bamboozlement? I'm just curious about that piece off the top.
Well,
yeah,
I found that actually I was in a group with Michael and Natalie, and there was a dream that I had interpreted fairly literally that Michael really helped me reframe into a way that was much more opened some insights into self that I actually hadn't considered before, and it actually made it a much richer dream because of that.
Yeah, thank you.
And it actually started out, it was a dream I had on March 13th that started out where I was being drafted into the war in Ukraine. So
yeah. Oh golly, thank you for sharing that. Just it's like that kind of there's sort of a flavor as we all start hearing each other's dreams. It just kind of gathers, and it's nice to hear that. And I think that even if we don't understand our dreams thoroughly, we never do, there are all these layers, but just sharing it helps us feel heard, and something shifts when we just say them out loud to someone else who's listening with intention, So thanks, Joshua. Anyone else? Yeah. Linda.
Just hearing what the last person shared about dreaming about being drafted into the war. One of the things my partner and I talked about was I had a couple of dreams before I knew that the war was coming about, as though I was experiencing some parts of the war myself. And I was just saying that it's so touching to me when I realize that these collective events are touching each of us and how connected we all really are, how we're not separate. And so I appreciate hearing that today from anybody who's also having those kinds of dreams.
Yeah. Bill, yeah. Hi, Bill. Oh, and you're muted. Can you, yeah. Okay, Bill, far away.
Well, we had a very nice chat with each other, and it seemed much more spontaneous it is than to face this big group of pictures here of all of the rest of you all. But anyway, I shared a dream that seemed very weird and strange and unusual to me. But it turned out the other two participants each had one that was somewhat related, like you had suggested, Laura, that people we all might dream of like themes. Anyway, just throw that in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I appreciate too, Bill, that you're holding the anonymity, the confidentiality of the group in a way that's really feels good, I'm sure, to your fellow dreamers, and yet making a statement of something. So thank you.
Okay.
It's hard to do, you know.
Yeah, I don't want any of them to be mad at me for having told what a good time I had with you.
That's the point. So I'm curious if there was that sense of, in anybody's groups, if you sort of found a sense of something's off, something's like there's a disorder piece here. And then like, so what? You know, I mean, sometimes we just wake up with that, I'm just disturbed, you know, and sometimes it's like, there's some sort of something to pick up on. There's some sort of thread back in to work with. There's some sort of a helper who shows up. Sometimes we just wake up, you know. I think it's important when we wake up. But yeah, anybody want to comment about feeling of something's challenging or not quite right, or what's the nature of the conflict? I mean, it's like a story, you know, without a conflict, you really don't have a story. And so a lot of times that conflict is about the me in the dream, which is the waking sort of ego self, is usually quite often the me in the dream. And so how I feel about things and how I perceive these, you know, threats or opportunities or relationships is kind of information about how I, you know, my habitual attitudes that the dream giver, the dream, you know, itself is probably trying to shape in some way into some next iteration of itself. That's the thing that we kind of have to sacrifice sometimes, is that waking, normal, comfortable ego. So that conflict is good for us. Doesn't feel good sometimes. Yeah.
I have a thread I'll offer, Laura, related to that. I had discussed a dream that I had myself, and I'm that in our discussions, some a set of odd connections came about, and in a very simple way. In a dream I had that was disturbing, beginning in a disturbing way of something being taken apart from how I used to make my way in the world as a younger person, being completely taken apart. And the piece that had strangeness in our little group meeting to it is that I actually the equipment that I grew up with, which was from my father, who was a filmmaker. One thing, he was taking a World War II anti-aircraft gun director and using it to make films, abstract films. So it was using that's what he used his gun director for. I had a project that I had that an oddity is I had a printer that was Cecil DeMille's printer, so that he could do in the film fantasy and the 10 Commandments of Moses holding the burning bush and composite those two images so it looks like he's holding the burning bush. And what I realized is I had done a sequence on my Tai Chi teacher about the from the Tao Te Ching, appear, disappear, the ability to come off the ground in performance, physically performance, and then exhaustion, as all of us are human. And out of that, I got a job, and it was all things. I was hired to do a sequence with Yul Brynner and Blythe Danner in the dream sequence of the film Future World. So strange. I hadn't made that connection at all, but it was related to making a dream image for the film. The final piece that I think it was helpful for me in the dream, and I think is reflective of Ukraine, is that there were younger people coming in saying, hey, Michael, in your dream, taking these things apart and saying, no, we can't have it that way. So I feel that is how younger people and all of us are trying to come to grips with the horror that's taking place in Ukraine. So the pulling apart actually had this layer of new approaches and rebirth in it.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for that, Michael. Yeah. I'm curious if anybody had children or something that came across with that kind of radiance we talked about with that 4-year-old. Anybody see anything like that? That kind of otherness, but in some way, or doesn't have to even be a child. I'm just thinking about that brilliance, that radiance, that kind of, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. We don't get those real often, but I wanted to just make a comment about those bright shadows. It's what Jung calls them. Bright shadows are the parts of ourselves that we cannot acknowledge because they are so good. They are so breathtakingly, beautifully, radiantly amazing. And that is just as much a part of the work as trying to integrate and work with our less agreeable selves, is to live into that radiance. And it is really hard to do. But if you have one of those, if you've had it recently or ever, you might remember it because they make an impression. And that's as much a part of shadow work as dealing with the difficult characters. So yeah. So that 4-year-old, I thought of that as being, sometimes those are children. They're kind of easier to see because, babies haven't offended us yet. They're just adorable. They need a lot, but our oxytocin kicks in, and that's all we want to do. So, well, I wonder if y'all would like to, in a minute, I was going to share a couple more quotes with you that I just think are so helpful as we think about life right now, themes that come up in our own dreams, challenges in our dreams, opportunities. So I don't know if you listen to This Jungian Life. It's a podcast. And it's so good. Okay, I see some junkies here. I know that you are way ahead of me because you listen to every episode. Okay, but you can go just thisjungianlife.org and there are lots and lots and lots of episodes from these 3 Jungian analysts and good friends. And so Deb has volunteered this one, and this was an episode called Amor Fati, which is love of your fate. It's a really good episode. And Deb remarks, what's given in your life that you can't do anything about. What's given is your fate. What you do with it is your destiny. It's all in the response. Can we say yes to life in the face of uncompromising reality and love our fate, choosing to reach for the life-giving spark, the self-central reality in everything? So I just love that helpful thing. And there's fate. It's just, this is it. Sometimes, and Jung says, sometimes things that we're not dealing with, we're not bringing to consciousness and we will not deal with, that comes to us in our waking life as our fate. It's ours to deal with, whether we work with it in the unconscious, inside or outside. Here it comes. This is our life. But how do we respond? And there's another quote. I saw this on a greeting card, and then I found this guy named Brian and Andrews. I'm sorry.
What?
Okay. So this is another thing about response. In my dream, he says, the angel shrugged and said, if we fail this time, it will be a failure of the imagination. And then she placed the world gently in the palm of my hand. So that makes me think that how we respond to dreams can be pretty significant for ourselves and beyond ourselves. And so what I'd like to invite you to do is just to, we're going to take a few minutes and simply engage with this meditative response, just receiving one of your dreams. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to go ahead and just click off your video so nobody's watching you, if you feel comfortable with that. And I'm going to just read a bit of a meditation for you. And I'm going to get back on my screen and pull it up. Wait a minute. Here it is. So we'll just spend a few minutes, maybe a total of 10 or something. And at the end of this, if you're just kind of wanting to stay down in there, you can just slide out and stay down in the dream. But otherwise we can come back and I'll conclude us. So the idea that I'm working with here is to keep a dream in your conscious awareness. And don't worry so much about trying to understand it and figure it out. That's a very worthy project. But even more important is simply relating with it. So receiving and relating, that's really the hope here in this little meditation. So you can choose a dream, maybe the one you just told, or maybe one I told, or maybe a one from long ago. And get comfortable, sort of settle in, take a few deep breaths. You're not going to need to write anything. Just get sort of settled. And now invite the dream to return to you. And you return to it. And as you approach each other, feel into your sense of things. And if this dream is disturbing or upsetting, you can simply observe it. You can keep some space and simply be with it with some distance. But if not, then go ahead and re-enter that dream as you experienced yourself in the dream, an observer perhaps an actor. And then just re-experience the dream all over again. So I'll give you a few minutes to just re-experience your dream in your imagination. Now let one part of the dream draw you. Maybe it's a scene, an interaction, just an image. But notice your feelings in this one part of the dream. Your feelings, interactions. Where are you? Whose territory is this? Or is it sort of disembodied and floating? Notice any sounds, colors, specific details. Look around. Textures, specific shapes. Notice who is here, who is implied or who is missing. Is there any movement or action that attracts your attention? And now let yourself be drawn to a single image. It can be of something that you see, something that you hear, taste, touch, sense in any way, and stay with that. Give that one part of the dream your wholehearted regard. And thank this image, this person or thing or place for being here in your dream. And then I want you to take about 2 minutes to simply engage with it. You can simply gaze. Maybe you sit with it or take it for a walk, move where it wants to go, touch, ask a question. But just stay with this particular piece of the dream for about 2 minutes. Now ask this image to show you how it would like to stay with you over time, not just in thought, not just as a memory, but somehow embodied and alive in you, maybe through a gesture. Maybe a word comes to mind, a tune, a color, maybe as a stone in your pocket, a prayer, a painting. If you feel led to just move a little bit or to imagine it's response to you as you indicate your willingness and your desire for it to stay with you and continue to be a companion. You may want to assure your dream image that you'll follow through, embodying its image, embodying its energy in some way that feels right, that feels aligned with its connection to you. And before we return, thank this part of you again, because it is a part of you that you've been gazing at, that you've been talking to and feeling your way into a relationship with. It is a part of you. So thank it again for its wisdom and its energies. And if you feel like you would like to respond with the simplest gesture of namaste towards that aspect of yourself that is inviting relationship. And when you're ready, you can return to us. And if you feel like you just need to spend more time, you can drift off. Just stay on. Those moments of just dropping down into the reality of one little part of your dream. I mean, the whole dream can be overwhelming. That's something that has come to ask for your attention and your relationship. And nothing is more important than simply being in relationship with these aspects of your dream. They're your teachers and your guides, the prods, the invitations. So thank you for dropping down in there, and I hope that it stays with you.
Laura, Neha has a question here.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful exercise. My question is that I wonder if you've, what your experience has been with people who are, you know, from a different culture and now living in this culture, like non-native people, and how do those dreams kind of manifest? Because, you know, we're kind of like in no man's zone. People like myself.
I love the question. Go ahead.
Because, you know, there isn't the typical dreams that I have a memory of when I was a child or growing up, or even, you know, more recently when I am back in India and here, you know, like, for example, some of the dreams that you were sharing earlier, I mean, they were wonderful, amazing dreams, but I have never had those dreams, you know, like, I mean, you know, like the whole, yeah. So anyway, my question is generally about like non-native dreams. Do you have anything to say about that?
So I really love that question. And first of all, there's so many more dreams out there. And so my intention is just to say, here's some themes I'm seeing lately. And so that does not in any way mean that those are normal or those are the ones that count the most or something. So, but I love this. I'm going to tell you about, I think different cultures just receive dreams differently is one thing. So I don't know how, I think different cultures simply receive dreams in different ways. And so I had this little project with the library, and I introduced dreams to all these different libraries in town in Nashville. And so I saw just a sliver again, just a little bit about how different sort of subcultures heard things, and so, yeah, I think our culture and our belief systems and our, do very much influence how we receive a dream. I think if we relate to the dream, then we start to kind of like let the dream show us what it's about. And that's the part where the cultural part maybe falls away. And I don't know. I'm more curious than authoritative, believe me. I had this interesting conversation last night. I'd run into somebody who had been in a dream group here in Johnson City, and there were 3 leaders, and one was a Jungian, and one was a Sufi, and one was, I think, Indian. And so what they did, as dreamers would share the dream, they would go around and say, well, here's a Sufi impression of that dream. Here's and I honestly, here's what a Jungian would say. Here's a more and I think it was an Indian sort of angle on this dream. And I've heard dreams from the Amazon rainforest, and it's gonna feel different how we come at them. Jung wants to say there's this archetypal level at which the dreams are coming from. And so your dream, regardless of culture, regardless of time, regardless of age, regardless of upbringing, is going to have resonance in some similar ways. And that is something to test and to experiment with and play with. And I think groups are the best way to do that. Dream groups, because I'm really interested, so what comes?
No, I mean, I think that's great. That's a very deep insight that we receive dreams differently, based on, I think, our cultures and experiences, perhaps. Not sure. But I was curious, because the Eastern psyche is very different from the Western psyche, our images, our symbols are very different. And the way we process things also different. So, yeah, I mean, I've certainly had dreams with, being by an ocean side and seeing huge waves of, water coming in. But some of the dreams that you shared earlier about the war in Ukraine was something that I couldn't really connect with. I mean, for myself, I'm just, yeah. So I just, it was more like a Eastern Western psyche difference also.
Interesting. Yeah.
If I may, can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Obviously I'm a Westerner, but I grew up in Germany at the mid-30s. So at my mid-30s, I moved to this country. And I don't know whether this plays into the discussion. I found it very interesting every time I go back there to Germany, and I sometimes struggle to participate in certain conversations. I've lost certain words, and my whole way of operating within the social circle there, whatever, is a little. Let me say, I'm not very skillful. And then after about it usually takes 3 to 4 days. And now something strange happens. I start dreaming in my native language, in German. And the minute that happens, everything else in the awake state changes. All these words that I couldn't think of the night before, they're all back. I'm right back there. And the same is true when I return. I come home sometimes and I'm still dreaming, let's say, in German, and I talk and then I start talking in that language, and my wife doesn't understand German, and she goes like, "What?" And I suddenly realize, oh, I'm not speaking in English, and it takes usually again 3 to 4 days I'm suddenly dreaming in English. And as I start dreaming in English, I feel more comfortable. Isn't that peculiar? But it's really an observation that I've had over and over. I also notice that may have something to do with the question that the Nia mentioned earlier, asked earlier. I shared in our little group that that I have a pattern, a particular pattern of dreams, and they always revolve around me trying to get back to a particular place. And for whatever reason, there are obstacles suddenly there. The geography has changed, or the road is blocked, or some circumstance prevents me from getting there. It's frustrating. It's exciting. Sometimes it's exciting enough for me when I wake up to go right back to that dream because I want to solve this problem that I can't get back there. And sometimes it's incredibly frustrating. And as I said, the only relevance that I attribute to that dream is really that it's a pattern. I have it very, very often. And so I've in pondering that, I have a pretty good idea of what it speaks to, in my career, in my lifetime, etc. So there is a significant difference just in the fact that somebody moves from one cultural background to another. That in itself has an impact. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, as to the things that and on the other hand, though, I'm definitely a believer in the archetypal images, and in that context, it doesn't matter whether I'm from New Guinea or I'm from, I don't know, Alaska or what have you. I find that I talk to people from around the world, and it's amazing. What strikes me is are the similarities in these image.
Yeah, what you're talking about, I think, is the best. It's just there's all these books you can read. We can have these, like I can give you, well, here's some things I see. But what really makes this alive is when you guys are talking, where we normalize dream talk so that this is something we naturally bring up. And it's not kind of some weird or woo-woo or peripheral topic out there that we only talk about with certain people. I mean, it's this vital, a life-giving source that feeds us all every night. It seems to me it would be really wonderful to intentionally help normalize that in your circles of conversation and just see what happens and see. So like Nia's question about, there's a cultural difference. There's an Eastern and Western difference. And I don't know what that would be exactly. I do know that when I see people respond to dreams with negative things or dark shadows, I mean, there's sort of a subset of people like, that is the devil and this is a bad dream. And, it's like an exorcism or something is suddenly called for. And of course, Jung is saying that's because we feel that aspect of ourselves is something reprehensible or scary or evil or something. So let's get curious. And I think that curiosity is so key. And I see Florine's hand up. Yeah. Oh, yeah, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still muted.
Yeah, unmute Florine. Florine, unmute. Yeah. I can't.
I'm working on it. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Working with geriatric patients and, people that are dying. It's very interesting that as people begin to slip into less conscious state, and mostly I guess if you hook them up to an EEG, they would be reading somewhere in the theta brain waves, which is where we dream. And very, very often people revert to their native language, and they will be speaking, sometimes talking, to people that aren't physically there, or just talking in their native language. I just thought that was kind of interesting because what Gerd had said about moving from culture to culture, I think when we get, into that altered state, we kind of revert back. And I think even though the archetypes may be universal, I think we put a cultural dress onto them, or costume. I do think that they're not, they come through our sight, sounds, feelings, taste and smell. So anyway, that's all.
I like that. Yes, the costumes of the archetypes. That would make a really good party.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah, actually,
your favorite archetype.
I do want to say, it's funny about this whole language thing. I've never dreamt I shouldn't say never, maybe I don't remember. I mean, at least recently, I don't recall dreaming in my native language, which is why I was curious. I was wondering if there is like a time frame into which like then you start like dreaming as though you were born here, even if you're not. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I've had, archetypal images of like gods or goddesses either. It's not that either. So it's just, but you're right. I think it's important for me to get curious rather than try to anticipate an answer.
It's too big. It's the vastness. I mean, think about that tip of the iceberg and the whole all the ocean that covers the earth. I mean, it's kind of dazzling that we can manage this little piece of it, but the piece that comes through is for us. I do feel like, that's the honor and the receiving is to say, well, this dream now, why this dream now is a really good question to start with, So I realize we're about a few minutes past, and I want people to feel free to check out. If we want to keep talking, I can hang out for a little bit longer. I was going to go ahead and conclude us. There's this little, what do we call it? Kind of a conclusion, kind of a blessing, kind of a statement of gratitude that I would like to conclude with. If you've been dreaming with me, you've heard this a million times, but I just really think it says it for us. And you interpret there's a word holy in here, and you just go with whatever that means for you. So I will conclude us, but stay on, okay? And you're welcome to do what feels right. So we are grateful for life itself and for the dreams we're given. We are grateful for each other, for the curiosity, for the trust, for the connections that weave us together in so many ways we are aware of and not aware of. We are grateful for the light before us that reminds us of that light within us, and we bow before all that is holy. So thank you so much for sharing your dreams, for just listening, being connected. I hope you'll do more of that. I think y'all are really good dream ambassadors out there to just talk dreams with somebody this week. And stay with that image in the way it asks you to stay with you.
Laura, thank you so much. That does remind me what you just said. James Hillman's always follow the image, work with the image. You are a wealth of information, and thank you for sharing it with us today. And I know, Adele, you want to also mention who's coming up in May?
Oh, sure. While we have a captive audience here, I want to invite you all to join us again on May 15th for a different type of program, but I think it'll be wonderful. A man who is a Jungian analyst in Memphis named Dr. Mark Winborn will present a program about blues music. He has a book called Deep Blues, and it's about all the archetypes and stories, kind of a Jungian perspective on blues music. He is a former musician, as well as he's been the director of the Jungian Training Institute in Memphis, and he will use some video clips and audio clips so I think it'll be very entertaining. So please join us and tell any friends you have who might be interested in music, even if they're not interested in Jung, they might enjoy it. That's May 15th. Thank you. And thanks, Laura. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I do have one question too, Laura. Do you have any groups that you're doing online in case anyone wants to join a dream group?
Thanks. I start groups usually in September and January. I think this summer I might try pop-up groups. So what I'll do is just send you that information, And I've never done this before, but I think it's important to be dreamers and to do that together. So I thought I might offer a series of pop-up groups, whoever can come, and we'll just, sort of work that out. And I'll send that information to you when I get those dates.
Thank you.
But yeah, regular groups start in September or late August. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and end, unless if people want to talk, raise your hand, and then Laura, as a co-host, you can end the meeting for all. Okay. I know I have to leave.
Right.
Does anybody want to stay and talk to Laura? Which is a very generous thing you're doing, but
2 hours, I can imagine. But I always answer emails, so email if there's any questions or things you want to follow up on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye. See you next month.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Very much. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Fred. Bye.
Bye-bye.